fun, and just saying nonsense for a minute is always it's always a good way to just kind of relax and stuff. And I love to just ask like dumb questions, and even in like serious like call-in shows and stuff every so often, just to like shake somebody up and get them to just loosen, a little bit from that script, to just be like, whoa, wait, stop. What is your favorite flavor of ice cream? And it was like, what does that have to do with anything? And I'm just like, yeah, what is it? What do you enjoy? I really love butter pecan. That's not one that gets thrown out as often, but it's a really good. I really think it's delicious. What is your
black
favorite?
Raspberry?
Black
I know
raspberry.
it's just flavored vanilla, but I fucking love it. And
yeah,
it's
but
purple.
and that's great. The color matters. That there is one thing I have learned, which isn't much, about food over the years. The one thing I know is that presentation is really important. Like it matters. So, well, with that, hey guys, how are you? We're here once again hanging out. We are just in this series we're getting to know more about people in this community, and we are getting to touch on some topics that we don't always get to touch on. And so I thought there was absolutely nobody better than Ember to come talk to us about some of those things. So I'm sure, because as wonderful as we all try to be, we all fall short on a regular basis. And so I'm sure there are people out there, to no fault of their own. They're good people, Ember. I swear they are. But they don't know about the great stuff that you do. So they're going to fix that. They will be subscribing and liking after this on everything. I can promise that. It's a guarantee. You can take that to some bank somewhere. Crypto, actually. You can take that to crypto.
Yes, it's Bitcoin, I'm sure.
That's right. It's as solid as the next
It'll
crypto.
never go down.
That statement is 100% true. No, but please tell everybody out there who you are and what you do in this space, all the stuff that you do in this space.
I thought you said we were only going to do like an hour and a half.
Oh, you know what? You're right. Okay, give us the highlights.
All right, I'm Ember, better than Ember, all over the damn place. Here on YouTube especially. I do a bunch of stuff. I do trans and intersex advocacy. I do promotion of LGBT rights. I do counter apologetics. I do countering conspiracy theories. But probably most frequently, at least by volume, if not by public response, is my morning show every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern. We get together. Well, me and whoever among the girls shows up, depending on their availability. We do a show called Learn Together Live, where we do what it says on the tin. We learn things together, live. It's like video essays, but live. Holy shit, I do that every day. And it's wow.
It is a lot.
Oh yeah, join us for those.
Good. And when did you guys start doing the because you haven't always done the morning show. When did you guys start doing that?
So that's a bit of an evolutionary tale. For a while, we'd been randomly trying to do things when time and availability and so forth. And then in August of last year, our friend Chris Mallard from the Daily Atheist Morning Show, he was like, I'm burned out, folks. I need a week off. And we're like, cool, take care of yourself. And then Ryan, who's his co-host on the show and also one of the girls, was like, I don't want to take a week off, though. And so she's like, I'm doing a show instead. Ember, come do a show with me. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so we did a show. And then we were like, we could just like pirate the whole week. And so we did exactly that. We just took the whole week and decided to keep doing it. And so now we do that Monday mornings also. We make Chris take the day off.
Awesome.
We shoved him completely out of his chair. We take his channel, but we also seize the means of production. And we have our own channel, Java and Jugs, the Secular Women's Show, which we're working on more programming for, but scheduling people is difficult. But we do the Monday morning show, and it's on Chris's channel, The Damn Show. It's on the Java and Jugs channel, and it's on every other channel of whoever shows up that day.
Yeah.
Which means you have to subscribe to Java and Jugs to make sure you get it, because if I'm absent one day, if I'm sick or whatever, then it won't show up on my channel. But anybody who is there can co-broadcast it. So,
And I mean, there's been quite a cast. I mean, like you said, Ryan is part of this.
mhm,
Maya Adkison, I've seen AJ Ways to Human, Bree,
mhm.
Hivesci. I mean, this is a cast of freaking characters, you guys, and it is an awesomely fun time. And in the morning too. So while you're driving to work, while you're getting ready to slave away and hate your life, hate it just a little bit less. We will definitely
Decrease
have
your
all of that.
suffering.
Yes, yes, it is
Yeah.
true. You will have a better day. Again, a guarantee, just the same as cryptocurrency. Just this. No,
I mean, who doesn't have a better day when they get to look at boobies,
right,
at least for a little
right.
while?
That's
Mm,
true. That's true. And we don't talk enough about boobies, blue-footed or not.
it's
But
true. They're
like,
very important.
let me before we just completely lose everybody. Let me ask, what got you into doing this? Because I mean, again, those are just the highlights, and there is so much more that you have been a part of, and that you have made possible in this community. What got you into this space to begin with?
Well, that's a long story too, but for the sake of brevity, I'm gonna blame Forrest Velkai.
That's okay. That's all right. There are a lot of people out there that blame him, and he deserves all of it.
He definitely does. So I was cruising the YouTubes as one does a few years ago, and because the algorithm knows I love science content, especially
Mhm.
goofy science content, it showed me Forrest, and I went, "This person is amazing." So I subscribed, I watched a bunch of videos, and then the algorithm said, "Oh, ho, ho, you like Forrest Velkai. Well, let me show you the atheist experience, and let me show
Ah,
you
nice,
Skeptalk." And I'm like,
nice.
holy shit, there's a whole community of atheists.
Yeah, yeah. Heck yeah, heck yeah.
So that drew me into the fold, as it were, because like our friend John often says, a lot of us feel very, very alone. In some
Mhm.
of our communities, we're the only ones we know. And we're
Right.
surrounded by people who are constantly like, what church do you go to? Or you have to do thus and such because religion reason.
Mhm.
And it feels very isolating. And so, John is all about stand up and use your voice. And I'm kind of the
Right.
same thing. Like I advocate for all the other stuff that I'm involved in too. I'm in
Yeah.
one of the nonprofits I work with, as you know, is dedicated to advancing LGBT inclusion in the arts.
Mhm.
And so like I try to advocate wherever possible. And I see like this whole group of atheist advocates. And I'm like, I
Mm.
did not realize we could actually like get a
Mhm.
foothold making some headway because
Yeah.
it's so wild. And then the ACA needed hosts. And
Mhm.
so I was like, oh, holy shit, this is a thing I can help with because I've done shows, I've done podcasts, I've done, early online radio programs, all sorts of stuff. I have the equipment. I
Right.
have the webcam, I have the microphone, I have the internet connection, I have the computer. I know how to do this. I can help. And so I contacted the ACA and I was like, you said you need hosts. I can do this. And they were like, cool, but we need to see you on camera first. And that's why
Mm.
I started my channel. And so it's
Nice.
all Forrest's fault.
Nice. Nice. That's
Yeah.
great. That's awesome. I love that. I love that because it just shows it shows the depth of this community, you know? It shows that we do have many, many wonderful people in this space, and a lot more, honestly, that are just right there on the wings waiting to be the next host, waiting to be the next, big channel, waiting to be the next morning show, and it's so awesome to get to see so many different people and newer faces. Look, I love a lot of the old guard. I think there's a lot of, the old school classic debates and stuff, and I love them, man. Don't get me wrong, they're super awesome. But there's so many new up and coming people. One of the people, for instance, um, Erica Gutsick Gibbon. I just think she is criminally undervalued. I think she is absolutely a freaking gem, and her work is so, it's so fun. It's so engaging. It's
Mhm.
digestible, and I'm excited to see her getting even more, recognition and notoriety for that stuff. So it's great.
Absolutely. She's a bona fide science friend. She's in at
Right.
least 2 groups that call themselves the Science Friends,
Right.
both of them. But, like, the way she dunks on creationists, the snark is
Mm,
exactly the right flavor
yes.
of nerdy, but also screw you assholes,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
great, but also her education, like, when she
Mhm.
talks about homo naledi or something, a subject that in college, my eyes just glaze over. When Erica
Mm.
talks about it, she's like, "This is the coolest thing ever," and
Eh,
you feel it, you
right,
know?
right. Yeah, you do. You get into it, you get excited by the information, as dense as it may be. And I found myself a couple of times being like, "Yeah, that's so cool." Wait, what was it exactly that was cool? It was that the foot was, oh, that's right. Okay, the bones of the foot were shaped like that. Right, right, right. It is cool.
Mhm,
Okay, I just had to
mhm.
go back and rewatch that. But
Pelvises, you say.
pelvises, you say. That is a word. There are certain words like that it'll make me pay attention. What about pelvis? Oh, okay. Um, but with that, you want to tell me something about why it's okay to be wrong. You said you had this idea, something about being wrong. Um, and I'm really
I dare say,
interested by
it's
this.
not just okay. It's a joyful experience. It's a wonderful thing. It is great to be wrong.
It's a joyful experience to be wrong. That's what you're telling me?
Mhm.
I don't know that I agree. Okay, this is good. This is great. I want to be convinced of this.
You want to be
Why?
wrong. So
I
you're
want I
already admitting my premise has value.
Okay, so I'm not gonna agree to that, but I'm gonna just, for hypothetical sake, yes, let's that is good. That's smart. I do. I want to be wrong in this instance. I feel like there's many of us in this space, in this community, um, that kind of pride ourselves on being correct, right? I think
Mhm,
a lot of us have always built, presented ourselves and built up this kind of view of us as, um, we're correct. We know the information, we've got it. Um, you're telling me that there's maybe not some good things there. You may tell something might be problematic with this. Is that where we're going? Is this
not necessarily problematic, but like
okay?
a bit of a mental stumbling block. Like there's concepts, there's different levels of intellectual humility, if you will, right? Like,
Sure.
as some of our friends have famously said, a skeptic wants to know as many true things and as few false things as possible. If
Right.
something's false, we want to know it so we can get rid of it. If
Right.
something's true, we want to know it so we can, like, put it up on the pedestal of knowledge and share it with others and so forth.
Right.
And that's great as far as it goes. But that's more about the philosophy of knowledge or
Mm,
philosophy of truth, I suppose. It's not so much about the personal level. On the personal level, we know we can be wrong. We're humans. We're capable of
yeah.
error, mistakes every day. I put too much sugar in my coffee, or I put
Right.
squid ink in my pasta. I just found out that's a thing today.
Is
It's
it?
We make mistakes. It happens. We don't get all bent out of shape over it. But some things we do get bent out of shape over. Why is that? Like, especially political things or
Mhm.
religious things, which is
Mhm.
why every parent says we do not discuss religion or politics at Thanksgiving,
Right.
because Uncle Fred will have an aneurysm. It's to be avoided because people get bent out of shape. Why those things that people are often frequently personally divorced from? Like, it doesn't actually affect you or me if
Sure.
someone down the street believes in one God and not another. So why do people get so worked up over it?
Yeah. Is it something to kind of touching on that core identity of who we are, that sense of self that we have, you think? Or
I think that's part of it, but it's not
Okay.
just us, because again, we know that we individually can be wrong.
Right.
I suspect that it's more of a group identity sort of thing, an ideology sort of thing, because
Hmm.
take, for example, the creationist.
Hmm.
They often say that if I'm wrong about Jesus, or if I'm wrong about young Earth, if I'm wrong about the Garden of Eden, if I'm wrong about Adam and Eve, if
Hmm.
I'm wrong about Noah, then what's the point of Jesus? So it's an argument from
Hmm.
consequence, but we see the stumbling block. They can't conceive of the possibility of being wrong about the Garden of Eden and the age of the earth because of the consequence of losing the utility of Jesus. If there's no original sin, there's no need for a savior. They know it, and they cannot get past that roadblock, because it's not whether they're wrong, it's whether the
Right.
thing they believe in, the group they're a part of, has been wrong about something critical to their entire worldview.
Right. Right. And they're already seeing that kind of end result being just the logical understanding that if there was never a fall from grace, if that was never really a thing, if the flood thing didn't work out and stuff, there's no point for this, redemption of sins and so forth later on with Jesus. So they're recognizing that problem and then saying, okay, well, there can't be, it can't be wrong right there. That has to be. Okay, so I'm with that. But so
Yeah.
then that feels to me like being wrong is bad. That feels to me like we still would want to avoid being incorrect because it could lead us to bad conclusions. You're telling me there's some value in being wrong.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Because, I mean, well, that it kind of goes into why so many people find deconversion difficult.
Yeah.
Because we've heard so many friends talk about their deconversion process and their
Hmm.
deconstruction process before that.
Yeah.
And it's it hurts because
Hmm.
it's not just accepting the facts aren't what you had believed. It's understanding that things you have done because of what you believed
Mm.
you now perceive to be wrong, or it's being shunned from your community because you have
Right.
questioned the authority, and so now none of your family or friends will talk to you anymore, or it's the consequences of what you have coming forward, or it's your very understanding of your place in the world. The whole concept of what you do and why you do it starts to come apart. If you lived your life for the
Mm.
glory of God, everything you did was in service to Jesus, and you find out he's just a
Mm.
myth and always had been, then who are you and what are you
Right.
doing?
Right.
It's
Right.
difficult.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That it it is one of those things that it can completely alter the course of somebody's life. It can completely isolate them, like you said, from their family, their friends, their community. Um, so is the joy of being incorrect stemming from the fact that there's a potential to change, there's a potential for a new avenue afterwards? Where is the help me out, Ember? I'm still not wrong enough yet. I'm coming to the side, but I don't
Yeah,
feel yet that I
this
am
is
wrong enough.
why
Right.
people have a hard time accepting when they're wrong.
Right.
But we can't convince people just by showing that an appeal to consequence is a fallacy, and therefore their position on whether or not they
Right.
can be wrong is
Right.
wrong. We need to show them the benefit, because there's so much good stuff that
Mhm.
comes out of being wrong,
Okay.
especially when you improve and do better. um there's a thing Forrest Velkai often says, stay curious, and
Yeah.
that it kind of plays into this. When you discover that you were incorrect about something, when you discover your own ignorance, do you feel threatened or do you feel curious?
Hmm.
Are you defensive or do you want to know
Hmm.
more?
Hmm.
I think it was, well, Socrates, which is to say Plato, wrote that Socrates said that wisdom is being able to entertain an idea, accept it and understand it within your mind without accepting it and believing it. And being curious instead of being threatened gives you that ability. If you're curious, then you can look into things. If you're threatened, you have to shut things out because you have to defend what you kind of already know is a mistake.
Yeah, I love that view of it, is the genuine curiosity of it, right? The not so much the having to shut somebody else's viewpoint down, having to provide good methodology or source materials for your own, but just literally having somebody say something to you and just looking at them dead in the face and going, hey, I don't understand. I truly don't understand what this is you've just said. I would like to learn more. And then asking questions along the way, not to push back on, not to ask questions like, well, is your God, able to make a burrito so hot he can't eat, nothing like that. Just to literally understand the actual, attributes of this thing or the parameters of your idea. But how do you do that? How do you get curious about stuff? What is that?
Well,
where does that come from?
At risk of sounding like a centrist, the way I often phrase it is, when you get past the idea of just accepting I'm a fallible human, I can be wrong, and actually try to work on intellectual humility or intellectual neutrality, even with the acknowledgement that you can be mistaken about things, then it gives you the ability to engage with ideas that you don't agree with or even find offensive without becoming defensive. Just look at the idea, see what it is, and see what it says. Don't have it, don't react to it. Don't engage with it. Just look at it.
Yeah.
And see what it is.
And that's not to say this, oh, sit on the fence, middle ground, there's always a compromise typey thing. There is often compromises, but there are many cases there are definitively no overlap, and it's not a place for us to give grounds on. There's no overlap between whether or not trans people are treated equally under the law. That's just, there's no overlap. They either are or they
human
aren't.
rights for all humans. Period. I'm dogmatic on that.
Yeah, there's no compromise there. But you're saying it is this ability to not bring on the idea, but to at least play in that headspace of, okay, if this is the case, here's where that leads to. Here's where that can take us, right? Just kind of that hypothetical of it. So you're saying there is value in some of these hypothetical philosophical conversation. Is that what you're telling me? I need to hear that because I've been doing way too much of it and I just need somebody to tell me that it's worth shit.
Okay. Believe it or not, despite all the blowback against philo bros and debating buddies and all this
Good
shit,
reason.
there is value in philosophy. My first philosophy class was like eye-opening. It's remarkable how much there is to learn about thinking from studying how people think and learning about learning and all the, like, philosophy, it's just ideas. It's all the ideas. Every idea you've ever had is philosophical.
Right.
From a certain point of view.
Right.
Like we get so caught up on the terms and the labels and the fallacy this and the structure that, but it ultimately is just ideas.
Right.
And ideas are fucking cool. Even the bad ones. Because when we see a bad idea, when somebody comes up and says, hey, you know what? Trans people should be put in camps. I react kind of strongly to that. And I'm like, that is a bad idea. And then I can interrogate that. Why is that a bad idea? And it helps me inform my own views. So I know not only what I believe, but why I believe it. And having a sound epistemology is definitely helpful in navigating the everyday world or debates.
And do you think that comes from that recognition of being wrong? Do you think that sound epistemology, or at the very least, a good way to shore up that epistemology is by actively seeking out those places that you're wrong?
I think I may be a little biased on this one. Like several of our friends, I was in a debate group in high school,
Mm.
and one of the first things that I was taught is when you find you have a position on something, make an effort to try to make an argument for the other position. For example, I was very, very strongly against the death penalty because that's I'm a very pro-life oriented person in general. And by that, I mean life, all
Right.
the life, protect the life.
Right.
Government should not be killing people, period,
Yeah.
you know? So I was against the death penalty. And because of that, my task was to learn what the pro death penalty arguments were, such that I could argue strongly enough in favor. I didn't have to believe it. I just had to understand it to win a debate on that subject.
Right.
And I did. And it turns out it's still a bad idea.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's way more expensive than just putting somebody in prison for life, and it's not reversible. So if you discover you made a mistake, you can't undo it. So it's a
Right.
terrible idea. Also, philosophically, it really is a bad idea to give a government the right to kill its own citizens.
Right.
That never goes well, folks.
Yeah.
But that aside, there's no benefits to it. It doesn't improve justice. It doesn't improve the term eludes me, the disincentivization of committing crimes, because people commit
deterrent
penalty offenses.
Yeah.
They're not thinking about, I'm going to get the death penalty
Right.
while they do it, because it's usually crimes of passion. It's usually you catch a loved one doing something horrible with another person, for instance, and you act rashly, and suddenly you're on murder one. It doesn't work in that way.
Stop somebody in a moment and say, hey man, the consequences of this, like that's not what's going on in that. Okay.
So I'm still anti-death penalty, but by engaging with the possibility of being wrong, I was able to learn that it's way more expensive to use capital punishment than to put somebody in prison for life. I didn't know that before. Because I looked into it, now I know, because I entertained the possibility of being wrong. That doesn't mean we have to assume we're always wrong. Although, fun fact, that's exactly what science does, is when we come up with a hypothesis, we go, okay, I'm probably wrong. And to show that I'm wrong, I'm going to test it this way. And then when I fail at that, I give it to the next scientist. And he goes, okay, well, this is probably wrong. And to show that it's wrong, I'm going to test it in this way. And if that fails, he'll give it to the next scientist. And she'll look at it and go, this is probably wrong. So I'm going to test it in this way. And if it keeps not failing, maybe eventually we start to accept it. That's how science works, the assumption of being wrong. So in a way, you'd be thinking in a more scientific fashion. Now, of course, it's more nuanced than that, but we're Americans. We don't know what that word means. But, you know.
God. So you're not saying, just to be clear, when I go to start up my car, go to get groceries, I think the key is it fits that car and it's going to start when I turn it. You're not saying that I should spend like 20 minutes testing this before I go to get groceries later. You're saying, in general, the principle of looking at a situation, having a thought about it, and saying, probably not, let me check. That is the underpinnings, really, of what has brought us a lot of the great things that we all love today, like flat screen televisions.
All the things. This leads to the joys of being wrong aren't just having more robust understanding of what you believe and why, but it leads us to cool things. Like, if I can take my objectively correct idea and put it together with my new friend, my debate partner's obviously wrong ideas, and see how they interact, sometimes I'll just be wrong and then I'll adopt the correct position. And sometimes I'll be vindicated. And the other person, if they're intellectually honest, will adopt the correct position. And that's fine. But sometimes these ideas will interact like volatile chemicals. And mix and an entirely new molecule of knowledge will form right before our very eyes.
Very
And that's
cool.
just one of the joys. Like
I love that.
we get to stop being wrong about something, which is
Right.
cool. But even better, we get to learn new things, which is cooler. And we see this difference. Like people often say in the skeptical community, it feels like you have to be PhD level expert on every subject.
Yeah.
Whereas the person you're engaging with has one of Aquinas's 5 arguments and doesn't even understand why he thinks what he thinks that, you know,
Right.
it's
right.
frustrating, but at the same time, it's not just because of the way debates work. It's because of the way we both think. Our interlocutor is hung up on I am right, so I shouldn't look any further. Whereas we're going, I could be wrong. And also, pelvises are interesting. So let's look into this, you know?
I love that. I love the way you said about the new molecule of knowledge. Like I love that thought of, you know, you mix in a little bit of this, you mix in a little bit of that, and hey, there's this brand new thing that we come up with. And I think I think there is great value in getting that opportunity to adjust, right? Even if it's as something. So one of the moments for me that I love to talk about in my kind of whole process of, you know, deconstructing and being skeptical and all that jazz is I had heard for so long as a child that white chocolate isn't chocolate, that it's candy, that it's not actual chocolate, it's candy. And I was always like, oh, that's weird. I don't. Okay, well, what is it? like, what is the actual makeup? Like, I know what fudge is, but honestly, if somebody was like, "Hey, what actually is fudge?" I'd be like, "I'm not sure. Sugar? I don't know. I'm not positive. Honestly, I don't know. Please don't ask me, guys. I hope that's never something that's gonna like save my life." But like, what is white chocolate if it's not chocolate, you know? Well, then I went and investigated and found out that, well, actually, white chocolate is chocolate in terms of the substance, because when you roast the certain cacao nut, you get solids, cocoa solids, and cocoa butter. And it's just that white chocolate is made with no cocoa solids. It's just made with cocoa butter. But in the United States, it is legally classified as candy, not chocolate, because our definition of what chocolate is based on the percentage of cocoa solids in the product. And so
it's legal nonsense.
So it's just legal nonsense. But technically, in the United States, white chocolate is not chocolate and yet also is chocolate, you know? But like that didn't. I say that to say that is not something that like radically changed the course of my life or anything. It's not that I learned this fact and suddenly, you know, the heavens parted and, you know, some beam of light came down or anything. But going through that process of starting out with the, you know, no, it is chocolate, and then being like, no, it's candy, and then finding out like, hey, actually it's a little bit of both. And it's kind of weird, but interesting, you know? Like that is a beautiful thing. That is a beautiful thing. And again, it sounds like what you're saying is we only get there by being wrong about shit, which I don't know.
It's a joyful experience. It's almost everybody's familiar with the idea of an epiphany,
right?
Being wrong about shit is how you get epiphanies. You suddenly the light bulb turns on and you're like, holy crap, it's both, you know?
Yeah. Okay. I'm much more on board now than I thought I was going to be at this point in the conversation. So I am surprised, but I'm not fully there yet, because
well, I can offer more benefits.
Yeah. Okay.
If the personal level isn't enough, that's also how we get good things, like from a practical perspective and for society. Because here's a few things that humans have been wrong about over the course of our history. Newtonian physics.
Right.
We got Einstein. The shape of the earth. Whether gods exist, and thus if we're allowed to eat shellfish. the size of the universe, what causes disease. By stop being wrong about that, we're now able to treat more diseases, which is definitely helpful. How our senses work, and even if they're all the same, how many senses there are. Agriculture. For somewhere between 300,000 to 3 million years, we were running around just catching whatever we could catch and picking up nuts and berries and shit. And then one day someone went, hey, I can like plant this thing and it'll just keep growing more food.
Yeah.
I can just put a thing in the dirt and it will make food for me. And we only figured that out, 10,000-ish years ago. And it changed everything. Every single thing we see in our world today, every major discovery in all of history, from using fire to cook and the wheel all the way through space flight, it all became possible because somebody took the conventional wisdom of their time and asked, what if we're wrong? Everything you love in this world, from your domesticated pets, because we had to like lure the ancient wolves and kitties to come hang out with us and such, to your cultivated flowers in your garden, to the tasty food in your next meal, as well as the building you eat it in, the heat and plumbing that make it cozy, the furniture that you're sitting on. It's all because somebody at some time embraced the possibility that maybe we were wrong about something we knew.
I love that. I love that. And you're absolutely right. It was, for the longest time, we didn't realize something as so apparent and obvious to every single one of us, which is, if you just plant the damn seed, it'll grow the plant right here at your house, like, and being incorrect about that has been such a revolution that it is literally called the agricultural revolution, right? Like that is what it is known as by scholars that study this shit. There is markers in our archaeological record now from the time period of, hey, this is when we started growing rice, like that's a big deal. So if that is what our history as a species and a society is full of, why are we so anti being wrong? Why are we so... It seems like there's very much this cultural feel of being wrong is very bad, that not having the correct information makes you weak, it makes you less than, it makes you an idiot. I mean, we've all seen the dumpster fires and everything. Everybody loses the moment you say you're wrong about something. You can't come back from that. Like, why do we have that feeling? If it clearly has been such a driver of the things that we value.
Well, I could speculate, and it would be speculation, but I can see it in one of two possible ways. On the societal level, there's an evolutionary advantage to pushing back against the idea that we were wrong as a society, because that forces us into something of a naturally developing version of the scientific method, where we have to challenge every challenge to the conventional wisdom. We have to test and test and test and test and show a thing really works before it gets accepted. And maybe that's because of other evolutionary pressures. Like if we just accepted every random idea, then we would have had a much worse time in the plague if people just started injecting chemicals that you should not inject and drinking things you should not drink because someone in authority suggested it. It would have extremely negative consequences. So skepticism on the level of the society probably serves a protective purpose. And it also forces us to refine our new ideas to make sure they really work before they get accepted. On the individual level, I think it's a matter of primate power dynamics. And again, speculate. But there's a sense of failure and humiliation and exposing your belly when you admit you're wrong. Because the other person has power over you in some kind of endocrine system way or something.
It's always, it is that's such an astute observation there, because it always comes back to this almost I mean, almost cartoonish, like, oh, me big, me better than you. I think harder, you know, like I know more facts type thing. And it does, it becomes this, it becomes this power symbol. It becomes this, oh no, they got me. I look so, I can never, and is that just as simple as, you know, we're all just apes, we're all just, you know, just
Well,
animals running around fighting for
we,
our
we can't
dominance?
we can't escape the fact that we are social primates, and so we're going to
Right.
behave like social primates. You know,
Right.
we can modify our behavior with our big powerful brains with consciousness and whatnot, but we can't completely eliminate instinct and so forth.
Mhm.
So there's a balancing act. But I think we can test this hypothesis. We can look at people who engage in the practice of not being wrong as a profession on the internet. And when we observe these specimens, what do we see? People who are wrong loudly, frequently, but
Mhm.
will never admit it because they seem to believe that if they ever say they were ever mistaken about anything ever, that the grift is over. They'll lose their millions of fans, their 8,000 viewers, and their 100 Patreon, whatever it is. They feel like they'll just lose everything if they ever
Yeah.
say they were wrong, even a little bit.
And that feels, correct me if I'm mistaken on this. I feel like we have done some studies that seem to indicate when a speaker, when a leader, a professor, somebody in that position of, you know, knowledge and authority, when they do admit to places where they have made mistakes, when they are willing to kind of acknowledge that and correct those and move forward, that seems to increase our trust with those people. Am I
Weirdly, it does.
so why that's so fascinating that there's this difference then where even though in the actual experiments we can see that admitting to being incorrect can actually be a benefit to your position in society, let's say, and yet all of the examples you and I could list right now, which we're not gonna because we're not gonna give them any fucking airtime. But every single one of these examples that we can list, right? Like it, they absolutely will die on every hill to not be wrong.
Some of them even write books about how they're dying on the hill of not being wrong.
It's exactly, yeah, 100%, yeah, and it's so interesting because it just it it seems to be in contrast. It seems to be we as a species kind of like it when somebody shows us a little bit of that humility or vulnerability. And yet these individuals won't give an inch and seemingly are incredibly successful in a lot of different metrics. I mean, they've definitely got
True.
more money than I do. So,
Although,
um,
in fairness, most of them started out with more
yeah, it
money
is
than
also true. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is also true. That does. Yeah, something about with like hoarding wealth or something. I don't know. That's another conversation.
yeah.
But so what is, I guess what really is going on there? What is happening? Why are we gravitating, or at least groups of us gravitating towards that, those people that will absolutely be so incredibly, demonstrably, painfully wrong, have it demonstrated to them time and time again, and will come back out, say the same stupid garbage, and still get claps and donations? What is, why is this happening, Ember? Help me.
Well, that gets quite a bit out of my wheelhouse. Hmm, there's probably multiple reasons. Most things happen for multiple reasons, and
Right.
and there's that pesky nuance again. To broad brush the issue, I'm thinking of a couple specific individuals that we really don't need to talk about, but they're very prominent at what they do.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems to be that the majority of their fans are people who are also wrong in exactly the same ways. And they
Yeah.
don't want to look into whether they themselves are wrong. They have that
Mm,
aversion to the humiliation of abasing themselves and having humility ever.
right.
And also there's that consequentialism of like, if I was wrong about all the things I've been campaigning for, of all the
Right.
political positions or the social move or the culture wars, you know, I as a representative of this political movement have caused harm to a lot of people if I'm wrong. So I can't ever
Can't
let
be
myself
wrong.
admit I was wrong. And here's
Right.
these big prominent people who are saying the same things they believe loudly and aggressively and defending their ideological position, protecting them from ever having to engage with the moral horrors they have perpetrated and know it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think that is a fair understanding of it, because yeah, then you have to I can kind of see that play out when it comes to the manufactured controversy, in my opinion, about like loving America, hating America thing. When did everybody start like being so blindly loving or so blindly hating? I don't think that's true. I don't think that's how most people view this, but whatever.
No,
Um,
most people are people. They're
right,
the idea of loving or hating a country is weird.
right,
It's an administrative body that is supposed to fix potholes.
right.
Like,
And they don't do a super great job in my area. I'm just going to be
no.
honest. There are a lot of potholes I be dodging on Briley Parkway, and it is frustrating going 55 miles an hour hitting that shit. It's crazy. Anyway, um, like I'm proud of many of the things that this country has done, right? But uh, I'm also ashamed of many of the things that this country has done. And there seems to be exactly kind of what you were just talking about that comes up in that conversation, where I'll say something like that to somebody and I'll say like, man, this is kind of a bad thing that we did, you know? And they give such a defense that, you know, we could never have possibly done anything wrong. And it does. It feels like, because they recognize that if we did back in like the 70s and 80s go do some fucked up shit in Central and South America, we have to answer for that stuff. And they don't want to address that. They don't want to have to
Mhm.
address those bad consequences, seemingly
Oh,
bad.
it's like that through all of history. So there's a
Yeah.
couple different things here. The first is there are examples through all of history. Like World War II, right? Like we have this whole culture of we should never kill people. It's wrong to kill people.
Mm-hmm.
Asterisk, unless they're Nazis.
Right.
Because of that cultural trauma of World War II, of having to
Right.
kill so many people. Well, it's okay though. They're Nazis. You know,
Right.
there's that contradiction in values. That's do we wipe out these people doing horrible things, or do we stick to what we said before and never kill people? Well, we
Right.
can't ever heal from that because we refuse to admit that either position could have been wrong, you
Yeah.
know? And we go back further to, you know, a bunch of examples, the eradication of the Native Americans, to slavery and the way people were treated then. We were just as liable for, let's call it reparations for quick, easy access, as we are to the damage we did to Central and South America.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to address those. We
Right.
won't talk about it. But
Right.
also to what you were saying about how you feel about the country and the way people substitute one concept for another, it seems like there's some ambiguity, there's some equivocation going on.
Mm.
And so when we run into a situation like that, we should do like you did with the white chocolate, and do as our friend Damien Mariant Hope puts it, when there's confusion, just ask the ontology question. What
Mm.
is white chocolate? Or in this case,
Mm.
what is the United States? What do you mean when you say the United States? Are you
Yeah.
talking about the government? Are you talking about the actions of the politicians? Are you talking about your friends and neighbors that you care about and make your life happy? And that's why you feel like you love the country? Or is it the landscape, the waterfalls and the mountains and the
Mhm.
rivers and even the freaking mosquitoes? Though no one loves the mosquitoes. But
Yeah, if anybody's
you get
on
the
team
idea.
mosquito, you can get the fuck out.
Canceled.
That's right. That's right. No, that is a great thought, because just even you saying it like that and just breaking it down and saying, look, depending on what lens it is that you're viewing the country, right? In just that list right there, my opinion changed almost every other time. It was like, well, landscape, then like history, they're like people, neighbors. It's like, wow, yeah, okay, I can see that. If I'm thinking the country as in the institution that, say, make sure that our citizens' healthcare is taken care of and everybody's living happy, productive lives, it'd be like, well, no, I'm not proud of that. I don't think we're doing great. People are dying from very preventable diseases right now. We still have a maternity rate, maternity death rate that is like at such a high level that just makes you think to yourself, like, what the hell are we doing in our delivery rooms, you guys? What are we doing? And some of the answers are so stupid. It's just like, oh my God, why are we not? Anyway, how do we get people to be okay with being wrong then, Ember? I think I'm on board. I think you've convinced me. I'm going to be honest. I was wrong. Maybe. I'm not sure yet. Maybe I was wrong. How do we champion being wrong without it being like that? Because I feel like saying it like that is so weird, right? Like, yay, good. Hey, we're wrong.
The joy of being wrong.
Yeah. How do we get people to see it that way? How do we do this? Help me.
Well, it's difficult. I mean, of course, we can lay out what we've laid out here, the reasons why you should not want to be wrong, the benefits, both personally and societally, of not being wrong anymore, of stopping being wrong so you can do better. And to be clear, we're never right. This is another idea from science, is we're never right. We're just less wrong. And that's the goal, is to always get less wrong. It's a little easier to be more humble about our ideas. If we never think of ourselves as right, we're just constantly trying to be less wrong. So there's always that default state of wrong. It makes it easier to move along that way. But also, we need to remove some of the roadblocks. And people on our side of things, the humanist side, the lefty side, the people deserve rights side. It's, in fact, it's a hard thing for me to accept, even though I'm the one saying it. We have to forgive people. We have to remove that humiliation and that recrimination for what they've done, because they have done bad things. But if we ever want them to change, we have to be willing to let them change. If we keep attacking them relentlessly for the bad shit they've done in the past, they have no motivation, and to them, it is a humiliation. If we don't remove that stigma, then they won't change. They'll die angry about it and take the rest of us with them.
That is a very tough one, Ember. That is a very tough one, because it feels like we have to let people do bad things sometimes. And I know you're not saying let people do bad things.
No.
Is it that we have to be okay with the knowledge that because we are all wrong, ourselves included and others, that there will be bad things? And it's the recognition of being wrong that stops those bad things?
Well, it's an understanding, I suppose, of seeing that we can't change the past, but we can change what happens tomorrow from where we are right now.
Okay.
Now, if, say, for example, one of the mega billionaires were to suddenly turn around and say, I have been a horrible capitalist, I've been exploiting millions of people for decades to get this rich, and I deserve to burn in hell. That's all true, but I want to do better. Like, say, the richest one of them, for example, whom I won't name because he was affiliated with a government agency a while back. So screw him. But say, for example, tomorrow he wakes up and goes, oh my goodness, I've been so horribly wrong in the way I've been living my life. From now on, I'm going to use my fortune. I'm going to end world hunger. I'm going to end homelessness. I'm going to, take care of everybody's healthcare budget. I'm just going to wipe out medical debt and still have 94% of my fortune. But never mind that. Like, you're doing great things to help humanity. That doesn't undo the bad shit that was done in the past.
Right.
But it goes a long fucking way to making the future better.
And that's important. That's what's valuable. That is the thing that we should all be working towards. Like, yes, the house was on fire, the house burned down, and all of our personal valued items were destroyed. And that is shit. And honestly, that guy started it. That dude right there. In fairness, he is at least starting to rebuild. That does not undo what he did, and he still needs to be held accountable for that. But it is only through that bringing people back in that we're ever going to. That is a really tough one, Ember, that you're throwing on people here. That's a big ask. Yeah.
Like, for example, a little bit of a personal tale just to like exemplify the difficulty of the situation. A couple months ago, someone that we both know and had respected decided to form a cult and send out mobs to attack people. And holy shit, this person did things that are literally unforgivable. He crossed lines that there's no coming back from. However, I can't forgive him, but I still want him to wake up tomorrow and say, holy shit, what I did was wrong, and do better. I want him to become a better person and do good things in the future.
Yeah.
Even though I can't ever forgive him, I know better than to ever have a personal relationship with a person like that again. Well, that person in particular again. But I still want him to do better. And if he does, then I'm willing to just cut the past off and just let him be,
Yeah, that doesn't mean you're saying, again, this is because this is always difficult, I think, for people, especially in our community that has gone through many people in this community have very traumatic histories, and not very far off either, fairly recent traumatic histories, right? And so I completely understand that somebody in this moment could be hearing what you're saying and saying, you know what, Ember, I'm not going to let this guy back into my space because they fucked me over, or, whatever it is, right? This organization, that person, whatever, right? And you're not saying that. You are not saying, oh yeah, you need to go break bread. And you're just saying the recognition of the better path is a better outcome. And we need to be accepting and willing to recognize that. Am I understanding that?
In principle, yes. And again, the acknowledgement, we're all human. Our emotions are real. We can't just put them in a box for the betterment of humanity. We're going to feel what we feel, and it's okay to feel those things. But on an intellectual level, we should strive to encourage people who have done bad to do better. Understanding, and I know this is going to sound a little bit religious, we ourselves have fucked up in the past, and we want to also be forgiven and do better.
I'm going to ask you this again. How do we do that? How do we bring, I don't know. It's like, I don't know if it's humility. I don't know if it's grace. I don't know what exactly the term is I'm thinking here, but that seems like a very difficult thing to try to recognize mistakes that I've made, right? Mistakes that as an individual I've been a part of in some way. to feel as if I have made progress, right? To feel like I was wrong, I got better, you know, and then to have somebody else do something wrong, and then me have that moment of going, well, I mean, I did that too at one point. I was wrong at one point and I changed. Like, is there a way to practice that shit?
If there is, I haven't come across it yet.
Okay.
In uncharted territory. There is no scholar book I can recommend on this one that I know of. If you know one, tell me.
I don't. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, this is good. This is the type of stuff I wanted to get into, because this is the stuff that hits us on the day to day. That is something that we can actually take into our lives and think about and try to come up with that brand new molecule of knowledge, because I think we both agree, yes, there is harm, there is grifters, there is the new cult artists and all the things. There is all of that, and that is bad. And yet we also recognize that we make mistakes, and sometimes we just aren't aware of stuff or the harm it causes, and we ourselves have been in that place and we want a better world. But like, how do you put those two volatile chemicals together? That I still don't get. And I love that. I love that opportunity for our people to be able to say, okay, this is uncharted territory. Let's see if we can navigate a course here, I don't know. This is good. This has got me thinking. I am definitely going to be thinking about this all night. Because I would love to figure out a way. I would love to figure out an off ramp for people that have gone so deep into the cult, the conspiracy, the whatever it is, right? I would love to figure that out, because it just feels like the last few years has been this, NASCAR track of just ramping up faster and faster every lap. And we're getting to this point where it's just like, there is no way to get off. And it sounds like to me, you are saying, hey, we got to be thinking of an off ramp. And I love that. So
it's, to me, the most useful perspective. And this is the benefit of having a multifaceted approach and like assuming you're wrong about stuff and trying out different lenses to see what works best, is putting on a physician's hat for this one. When a physician sees an injured person, like say, for example, the old TV show MASH, right? Like occasionally they treat a US soldier, but occasionally they'd get a Vietnamese soldier.
Right.
To the physician, even though they're on the enemy's team, you still treat them because your top priority is that they're a freaking human.
Right.
So in the context of our racetrack, we've reached the point where the cultists are going around and around and around so fast. Some of them are spinning out and slamming into the wall. Some of them are flying off the track because they just can't stay with it anymore. And it's hurting them, but it's also hurting whoever they land on. It's not good for anybody. But we don't know how to build an off-ramp, nor do we particularly feel like we should care, since they've been doing their best to hurt us for a very long time now.
Right.
But if we look at them like a physician looks at them, politically they're opposed to us. And in fact, we've seen situations, we've seen stories play out where like a neo-Nazi had a black doctor, and the doctor did the doctor thing because that's what he's supposed to do. And it changed the Nazi's life. He's like, if our positions had been reversed, I absolutely would have let you die. And the doctor says, I know. And the Nazi says, but you still healed me. And he says, yeah. It can be transformative to a person to realize that you can see the humanity despite the ideological poison that they wear on their sleeve or their forehead or whatever the case may be. So I guess the best advice I can offer is look for the humanity, and remember that as a humanist, that is the top priority. Over and above all their other identity markers. It's a human being. It's a person.
it feels so simple and so difficult all at the same time, because it feels almost as if it's like, hey man, just take 5 seconds and just go, this is a person, people are complex, you've been through a lot in your life, you've made mistakes, and it's like, okay, I feel like I could probably do that. A lot of people have like little mantras, that got written on their mirrors, or a little sticky note on the door before they leave, says something positive or whatever, a little calendar with cute little quotes or something. Like, it feels like almost like it's that simple. You just have a little calendar, one for every fucking day of the year, and all it says every single time is everyone's a person, people are difficult and complex and nuanced and make mistakes, and it feels like it's that simple. And yet I can honestly tell you, earlier today, when this guy was driving 5 miles an hour under the speed limit, and I was losing my mind, freaking out because I have terrible road rage, I definitely did not have that thought of like, hey man, this guy probably has a lot on his plate. There might be difficult things going on. Maybe his car's messed up. Maybe he's having a bad day. Like, absolutely did not have that thought. And so again, I'm back to this place of wanting help to how in the world do you do that? It feels simple. It feels like something I can easily do. Yeah, that's a person, difficult things. And yet also, I know the moment I go to get groceries after this, I am going to absolutely lose that.
Well, I guess another thing is to recognize our society realizes at some level that we do all have these limits. Like, we don't realistically expect victims of abuse to forgive their abusers. Like,
Right.
that's not a requirement that should ever be put on them. Like, I did a very in-depth study on what the experts in helping survivors do suggest we do to try to help survivors.
Right.
Because there's been, ironically, from the individual I mentioned earlier, a tremendous amount of very harmful misinformation being spread around. I'm like, we need to clear this nonsense up before people get really hurt,
Right.
We don't expect survivors to forgive their abusers, but we don't expect the survivors to be in charge of what happens to their abusers either. As a society, we believe that people should be held accountable for wrongdoing. We need to, for the rule of law to mean anything, but we try to have objective people, not necessarily neutral people, but objective people.
Right.
Look at the situation. We say, you're dealing with a lot. Your job right now is to survive and heal. So go do that. We will deal with this asshole in the mess,
Right.
And it's hard, but we have to get on with our lives and let the people who can deal with that problem deal with that problem, because it's unreasonable to expect it to go otherwise. So say, for example, you took a person who, not to get political, but everyone's talking about that island. One of the politicians from that island,
Right.
you don't expect that person's victims to invite him over for dinner, like that's not a reasonable thing. It's up to other people who weren't directly affected to determine what's the just thing to do with those people. And so when it comes to like people who want to reform, like say another one of the people from the island, like flipped and was like, you know what, I'm going to come clean. All of it's true.
Yeah.
Every one of these people who's implicated,
Right.
they're all guilty, and me too, then we'd take that person, we'd be like, we have to hold you accountable, but we're also not going to like wish 1,000 plagues upon you for what you've done, like we will everyone else,
Right. That is, I was talking to a friend not too long ago, and I said, you want to see the most, leftist, hippie, human rights, loving person turn into the most, right-wing, hardcore conservative. Talk about the punishment for criminals. Talk about the death penalty for various heinous crimes that we all think about, when it comes to the death penalty. And you will, I swear, I've seen it so many times in my life. I watch somebody flip on a dime and instantly are like, no, put that dog down. I want that out of the gene pool type stuff, and again, I kind of feel like that comes back to what you were talking about at the beginning of, in terms of this defensive attitude that people have towards that in that moment, because it's almost like they have to recognize that if they were wrong on that, then they've perpetuated a lot of state-sanctioned murders, basically, right? Is like, and they don't want to have to come to that, and so the correct answer must be, once again, well, yeah, you just put them down because we can't have that in society.
Well, here's another take on our original premise, that the joys of being wrong. Sometimes there are things that we know conflict with our value set, and yet they still seem to be the correct course of action for other reasons, based on emotions and the other unspoken values that are behind those emotions. Like, for example, the case of a predator, right? Like, we have this ideal that humans are valuable and should not be killed by the government.
Right.
But if someone hurt one of my kids in the way that the people on the island did,
right,
I might feel differently, and I would know intellectually I am wrong. My values are in conflict, and I am engaging in the wrong moral action. But I dare say I might still find joy in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that, because that is absolutely something I think will hit home for so many people, is that weird space that I really do think every single one of us would find ourselves in, desperately struggling with those values of human life, and yet the horrific, I mean, disgusting harm that has occurred, right? How to actually figure out what the next step forward are. That seems to be one of the things that we struggle with so freaking hard. And again, there is, I am coming around to this, Ember. There's part of me that thinks one of the reasons that we struggle with it has to do with our aversion to being wrong, and the finding joy in those times and those ideologies that we're incorrect on is actually what has brought us this progress, has led us to this, the many great things that we like, and the things that we don't like. Those are just the things that we just have to recognize where we're wrong on. I'm coming around. You might have convinced me.
We're all works in progress.
Right.
One of the beautiful things about being alive is we can continue to grow and be less wrong from time to time, hopefully. But that's true of humans as a species too. Despite what you might hear from the mythology books, we're not actually in the most highly evolved form possible. We're still changing. We're still learning and growing, both biologically and as a society. Our brains get bigger generation to generation. There's problems with that too. We're having to do more cesarean sections because birth canals aren't big enough anymore. Yeah. But details. The point is, we're still growing. And just like you would look at your own children and say, you shouldn't have drawn on the wall, child, but I still love you. Right. We can look at humanity as a species and see, you shouldn't hurt your siblings. You shouldn't burn the other species with a magnifying glass like a 3-year-old right. with a magnifying glass. You shouldn't do these things. They're bad things. And we can say you have done harm. But what's the purpose of that? Is it for revenge, or is it to inspire growth and try to get them to do better? I don't want to take revenge on my child who's drawn right. on a wall or burned ants with a magnifying glass. I want them to do better. And so it's really important that I continue to accept them and I continue to try to teach them on a species level. Again, people from the island, not so much.
Right. No, I get that. And I love that. I think we need to come up with, and I'm not saying right here, right now, not us. We will leave this to our wonderful audience and the smarter minds that populate this world. We need to
comments, people, you have homework.
That's right. You do.
This was free entertainment. Oh no. Your job is to solve all the rest of the world's problems.
That's right. You have to. And if you don't post them in the comments here, they don't count. It just doesn't. You won't get credit. But what we need to come up with as a society is more ways to incentivize that understanding and recognition of being wrong, that those moments where we are incorrect and we continue to try to figure out what is right, that needs to be something that we start instilling more. And I don't have any fucking idea how to do this. Honestly, I don't know, because it seems to be counter to all the things. Like what I'm imagining in my head is like a cartoon scenario where like a kid raises his hand in class, and he's like, Columbus, had, sailed the ocean blue in 1238. And the teacher's like, oh my God, Johnny, that is so wrong. Oh my God, great job. No, definitely not. Definitely not that time period. And I don't know if that works on a large scale. I don't know how
I don't know that that's necessarily the way we want to paint that, but I mean, maybe we haven't tested it that I know of, so maybe it'd be effective.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I often say on my shows, because, doing a live show every single day, I'm going to get a lot of things wrong.
Sure.
And, over the course of all the shows, not every single day. I'm very rarely wrong. Never. Anyway, I just say that to people. I'm like, understand you're going to get things wrong, and that's okay. You're allowed to be a person. The thing that you need to keep in mind is to embrace the fact that you're going to get shit wrong. And when people come at you with corrections, don't take offense to it. Don't get defensive and just be like, oh, thank you for sharing that with me. I'll look into it. Like, you don't have to automatically concede that you were mistaken and just hand them being correct as a trophy or something, but like, take it under advisement, and it's okay. You don't have to get defensive over it. You don't have to fight about every single weird take, I know, but not every single issue is worth fighting over.
Yeah. I know a pastor in my area, a buddy of mine, and he is known as the guy that when you come up to him and you tell him he's wrong, you tell him he's misunderstanding, foundational, whatever, blah, blah, axiomatic, whatever, you'll go off on this big rant, and he'll look at you and he'll go, okay. And like, that's it. You'll spend 5 minutes telling the guy how wrong he is, and he'll be like, oh, all right. That's interesting, and it's, I think it is because he is very much coming from this place, like you talked about, of being able to entertain the idea, but not having to hold to it, and allowing for that opportunity of, yeah, man, I sure could be wrong. And if I am, honestly, great. If I'm mistaken and I can correct that, fantastic. That is, that's difficult. That's difficult, Ember. I don't know that I can get there. Yeah.
It depends on the thing. Like, if a person comes up to you and is like, SR, I heard what you said about electrons on that show last month or whatever. And I just gotta let you know, you were so very wrong. Here's this thing called one electron theory. And it turns out every electron in the universe is the same electron, and you need to adjust your thinking. You're spreading science misinformation, and it's just really embarrassing, man. And you can just be like, I haven't heard of that theory. I'll look into it. Maybe I am wrong. It doesn't weigh on me one way or the other.
Right.
It's not the end of the world.
Just to be clear, are all electrons in the world the same electron? Is that how that works? Have I just been okay? I just for a good minute there, I was really like,
that hypothesis is out there.
It is a real high. Oh, okay.
It falls apart immediately as soon as we start. It's like this idea about the universe being inside a black hole, right? Like I found this really compelling when it first came out like 10 years ago. But all of a sudden, because there's this weird thing in social media where every few years, ideas from years ago come back because it's a new audience who don't know that the bad ideas before were already debunked. So it's been making the rounds again, this idea that the universe is inside a black hole, and it's based on something that sounds science-ish, which is the event horizon of a black hole. I believe it's the Schwarzschild radius, is based on an equation where the only thing that really matters, that determines the size of the event horizon, is the total mass in the singularity. And if you add up all the known mass of the universe, then the size of the black hole that should produce, if it were in a singularity, is like 3 times the size of the observable universe. Ergo, we could be inside a black hole because we have enough mass to generate one bigger than the space we can possibly see.
Kind of makes sense.
But there's a few problems with that. One of them being that we're making some pretty significant assumptions. For one, that we're in a singularity, which we're not, because the universe is expanding rather than spaghettifying, Another has to do with the motion. The singularity has to behave as a single object, and there's a bunch of other things that do not apply to the situation, and so that simple equation is not the correct equation to use in this situation. So, it sounds sciencey on the surface, but it is not correct.
It felt sciencey, especially the one electron thing for a second there. It felt more real than, but that is, it's not the case. That's good to know. That is good to know. There are more than one electrons out there.
Compelling, because it's like, okay, so like, because of quantum uncertainty, the only thing we know about an electron is somewhere in the universe at any given time. What if all the electrons are actually the same electron? But if you think about it a little more, you're like, well, hold on. We've detected multiple electrons in the same place at the same time. So that doesn't actually hold up. So the workaround for that, according to the theory, is that the electron persists all the way through the end of the universe. And at like the big rip or whatever the hell happens at the end, it jumps backwards in time somehow to be the next electron. And it will do this over and over and over until that same electron has been every electron. But first of all, how does it jump back in time?
Yeah.
But also, we know that doesn't make any damn sense, because we can make electrons from nothing. Sort of from nothing. If we take electromagnetic waves, light, photons, light particle duality, all the wave particle duality, whatever it is, we take photons of certain wavelengths and shoot them at each other. They will actually collide. If the wavelength is slightly off, they'll just pass right through each other like ocean waves. But if they're exactly right, and only certain ranges of frequencies will do this, but if they're exactly right, they'll smash as if they were solid, and out will pop an electron and a positron. And usually within a fraction of a second, they'll smash back into each other, turn back into 2 photons, and shoot off in entirely different directions, which is neat as hell, but it only lasts a fraction of a second. But sometimes, every once in a great long while, especially when we use magnetic fields to modify the reaction chamber, the electron will go one way and the positron will go another way and annihilate with a different electron. So effectively, we have created an electron.
That new electron.
And so they can't all be the same electron over and over, because that electron only came into existence when we pulled the Genesis and said, let there be light, and poofed it into being.
Right.
With our godlike
also,
powers.
I was just thinking about like Niels Bohr and Heisenberg and shit. And like like them detecting an electron and it's being like, no, that was it. That was the only one. We can't. We can't. Oh no, we can't do anything anymore. Our metal's not going to work. How? It can't share electrons anymore. Oh my
The
god.
photoelectric effect is just borked.
Right. It's just all screwed up. I don't know. I don't know. I'd be okay with living in a black hole, but I don't want to live in a simulation. And honestly, here's the only reason why, because then all of those people that are so fucking smug about it online, they'll be right. And I don't want that. You know, I want them to experience that joy of being wrong, Ember. So I hope if it's between the two, if we can only pick simulation in a simulation or in a black hole, I'm going with black hole. But I will say I loved too that we got just a little bit in the end there, because both of us are ADHD and incapable of staying on any path, that we got just a little bit of some of the science and stuff that you also touch on as well, and all of your great stuff. And I want you to tell.
You outed me as a nerd. Now
You are a nerd. It's too late. I'm sorry. It's just done. And for all of those people out there that were thinking, you know, you weren't. You are wrong, and you're welcome for that. So two birds, one stone, I guess. But no, please tell everybody where they can find you, where they can hear more great stuff from you. Because again, you are doing a lot of really, really awesome stuff in this community, talking about some really, really important topics, I think. And we just need more of Ember. We need more people knowing about you. So
I appreciate that. I like to think more people should know about me too, but I am biased, admittedly. I'm Ember. I'm on most of the socials as better than Ember. Oh, it's over here, wherever it is. I do a lot of stuff. My channel here on YouTube is better than Ember, but I do other things. I appear on other shows. I show up in other random places, and there's other stuff I've done in the past that there's a lot. So find all my links, and also some of the science I've talked about, and a bunch of other useful stuff on my website, betterthanember.com.
yes, and we will definitely have all of those in the description as well. So please go check all that out. You guys know all the other things, liking, subscribing, sharing, whatever. Yeah, you know what to do, you guys. And
your
you know what?
Ancestors struggled and suffered and died for thousands of generations to give you buttons. The least you can do is push them.
That's right. You know what? Honor your family history and the history of this species, and like this video. If that doesn't get likes, Ember, I don't think anything will. I just, at this point, it's just, that's it. That's pulling out all the stops. But no, thank you guys so much. Ember, I am definitely going to have you back, because I think there are a lot of other really cool topics we can tackle as well. And again,
there's
everybody,
a lot we can be wrong about.
yes, there is. So, and I've been wrong about most of them. I'll be honest. I've been wrong about most of them. So, thank you so much, folks. And yeah, I don't know. Go do something. Go be wrong about something. So,
or make a sandwich.
Ooh, that's a good idea, actually. You know what? Ham and cheese. It's coming.